Hello, Internet, and welcome to episode number 98. That's two less than 100 of the Comic Watchers Show. I'm your host, Matt. With me, as ever, are Nick and Mike. Gentlemen, how we doing this week?
We're good. We're good. Humid weather here on the East Coast, kind of rainy. Yeah. My allergies are kind of running rampant. It sucks, but hey, we are fire free. So unlike our brothers, sisters, and partners out west, right? Terrible stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hats off to the people that are hurting right now out on the West Coast, and the men and women that are trying to contain those fires, because it's just an incredible scenario. And we read comics and probably couldn't make this up. So on deck this week, we've got Superman number 25 from DC, obviously. We see Bendis and Reese. We're going to be digging into that double-sized goodness, and then Rise of Ultraman, number 1 from Marvel. A little bit of kaiju action there. So that's what we got planned. Gentlemen, as always, first and foremost, we've got the news of the week today with Scoop Johnson.
This guy. All right, first, we got some Comixology news. Oh, excuse me. Chuck Austin is coming back to comics with Edgeworld. That very same. Keep your ears peeled. Possible, Easter egg type thing. Anyway, Westworld on Comixology. Look out for that. Should be about next week, I believe. September 15th is the date that we have. So that should be exciting. Moving on to DC, we got a double dose of Tom King for you. For all my Twitter folks out there that follow Tom King, he tweeted out a pic of the Phantasm, which has the whole Twitterverse in an uproar. Take some guesses, take some stabs. You could
wait. You say the Phantasm? Do you mean as in Batman Mask of the?
Yes, sir.
Oh,
yes.
Intriguing.
Yes.
Okay.
And from the pic that is on his feed, obviously I'm sure it's a comic of some sort, but it's not an animated picture, so it almost looks real. So that could be obviously this PR, but who knows? Maybe he's going to go in directing, and there's a Mask of the Phantasm, live shot movie. Nick is probably going to, star in it. He's the Phantasm. Who knows? I don't know. Keep your ears peeled. This show, the Twitter, everything.
Nick is very quiet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't say anything. I'm, contractually obligated to not speak here.
That's next show. We'll talk about it next. Moving on to more Tom King news for all you Kingites out there. Batman and Catwoman, the limited series, finally has a release date of December 1st. That was put out from Games Radar on their Twitter account. So look for that. And it actually kind of is spreading around. What's that? Oh, man, I'm sorry. I thought you said something. I'm sorry.
My mouth is probably moving. Sorry.
No.
I'm hopped up on Goofballs.
Gotcha. Yeah, well, we are live, sir. So I will ask you to, kind of contain yourself there. Moving on to Image. Let's see what we got here from Image. The Image Skybound Entertainment. We are looking forward to. Oh, did I mess? I messed up. I do apologize. So we're going to skip that part of the news and talk about the end of The Walking Dead. That's on the website as well. Obviously, what's that?
I said, holy moly.
Yeah, finally, right? This
is the second time we've had to talk about the end of The Walking Dead in like 6 months' time-ish.
I don't need this. I don't need this in my life.
But it's not really the end.
It's not. It's really not.
And they're dragging the quote-unquote end out till through 2022. So
yeah.
But yeah, they did announce that season 11 is it on The Walking Dead. It's going to be a supersized season, 24 episodes. That's pretty cray-cray. And then I guess I don't remember if this was the plan or not. Nick, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're evidently tacking on some more episodes this spring to season 10.
I'm not sure if we're getting more season 10 episodes. I know they're doing like a 24 episode season 11.
My understanding is there's 6 more episodes that they've decided to do that are going to be quote unquote season 10 continuing. I hope that doesn't mean that they're going to drag the Whisperers thing out even more at this point, because it's a perfect place to wrap up. No. But I guess we'll see.
Yeah. In happier Walking Dead news, Nick, chin up, sir, chin up.
Yes.
Charlie Adlard, for the first 6 issues of The Walking Dead Deluxe, the full color editions, they are going to do 6 connecting covers. So that looks really odd. We have that on the website with the pictures and everything.
Yeah, they have colors from McKeag, who's doing the recolored releases, and they look really cool. Awesome. It kind of spans a big time of the Walking Dead universe, and there's just 6 awesome covers all lined up like that. Like, I need them on the wall right behind me, you know?
Very much so. That'd make an awesome mural.
Yeah.
Yeah, and gentlemen, that is it for what's that? Unless you guys got something else.
I was just going to say, we only broke part of the Walking Dead TV news, and that's that there's 2 spinoff shows. Yeah. So Carol and Daryl spin off into their own show starting in 2023. And then there's also going to be at some point an anthology series based in the world of both new and returning characters. Fingers crossed, at least one episode is about Abraham. Because the world needs Abraham.
It's true. And like, honestly, like, I'm really glad you mentioned, because it's not the end of The Walking Dead. Just looking ahead at what's to come. I mean, there's so much. So October 4th, you've got the finale that we were kind of supposed to get before the pandemic. And then you've got the start of The World Beyond that I guess got changed now to a 2-season series.
No, it was always going to be 2 seasons.
Okay, so it starts on October 4th.
It was a limited run, but the limited run was 2 seasons.
That makes sense. And like, especially now that, you know, we've got those 2 seasons coming. Now we've got, I guess, what seems to be just a regular ongoing with Daryl and Carol. And then an anthology series. There's so much to come still. And I've seen, you know, they had Scott Gimple had mentioned maybe like less than a year ago that they had like 10 years left of The Walking Dead stories to tell. And it's like, oh, so you're canceling The Walking Dead right now? Like, where's the 10 years at? But it's in all these other series. Like, I'm hoping that we can get all of them
and
going.
That the Rick Grimes movie that we hadn't heard much about in forever. Yeah. They mentioned that too. That's still going to happen. We just don't know when.
It's supposed to be a trilogy. Like, as far as we know, a couple months ago, Gimple gave an update that they're just kind of in production still, and they're taking their time with it. But it is still supposed to be a trilogy, so that's 3 movies. I mean, it falls in line if you follow the comics, the story. You can kind of understand where they're coming from and why things are unraveling like they are. But from the outside, if you haven't followed the comic, it must seem pretty chaotic.
Well, and like, you know, what, 30 more episodes of the show, that'll roughly sync us up with where the comic ended in terms of story. So,
like, where the Rick Grimes movie needs to,
It looks like it's out there on something that's related before we move on. I read the Negan Lives one-shot, and I'm just going to reiterate, I do not believe Kirkman for a second that is not intended to be an ongoing.
Right?
Not for a second.
Yeah, there's no way that's not intended to be an ongoing. No way.
Stop playing games. We love you. Give us the Negan comic. Stop holding out.
Please.
And announce it on this show.
Yes. I will tweet at him again. I'm waiting for a restraining order, but you know, Surprised I haven't got a restraining order yet from a couple of
restraining order from AMC. Leave our cash cow alone.
It's not my fault. It's not my fault.
Oh, it's your fault if you write the tweet. Even if the tweet contains the word cob thief. And with that, I think it's time to talk about serious things like Superman and aliens and super alien men. So,
Not super alien.
Yeah, which I guess technically Superman is from an Earth perspective. So we are getting into Superman number 25. Ooh. That's right, baby. Written by Brian Michael Bendis, art by Ivan Reis. And is it Julio Ferreira or Juan Ferreira, my friend? Because I have a feeling it's Juan.
I think it's Juan.
Oh, it is Julio. Whoa. Meyer, you've done it again. Julio Ferreira, Danny Miki, Alex Sinclair, and Dave Sharp. So this is a pretty good double-sized one point. What we have here is the reintroduction of Lana Lang into current Superman mythos. She's kind of been off radar for a while now, since the beginning of the Rebirth era, i.e. when she briefly became Superwoman and held down her own title, which was actually really good, and then nobody bought it. Shame on everybody. Fish it out of the dollar bins. It's worth it. It also introduces a new threat, and it's kind of interestingly misleading, because the threat is called Sinmar, but Sinmar is actually a planet, and they create their own version of a Superman. And they create him in response to the fact that they witness Krypton's destruction and baby Kal-El rocketing towards Earth, and they know what a yellow sun will do to a Kryptonian, and they want to be prepared just in case, because they don't know, is this Kryptonian going to become the cruel overlord of Earth and rise up against them? So they endeavor to make their own hero named Eisno, and they basically manufacture their own Superman. And there's a lot of stuff going on here. There's both simultaneously a lot and not a lot to unpack. It's kind of a typical Bendis package in that regard. But Nick, how'd you like Superman number 25?
Yeah, that's actually a great explanation. You're reading through it and you're like, wow, this is awesome. There's so much happening. And then you finish and you're like, what exactly happened here? I need to unpack this and figure out what's going on. But I haven't followed Superman pretty closely. I check in here and there to see how the Bendis run is going along, because I ended up falling out after maybe 10 issues or so. I like it, but it's very Bendis-y, and I was actually glad to see this introduction of what is, I guess, a new villain in Superman lore, because it feels like it already hits harder than all of the time we had spent into the last villain that was supposed to be an ordeal. But this one, I actually loved the world building behind it, and I wasn't all that interested in the Superman side of things, and I was really into what the Sinmar were doing, and I'm really excited to see kind of how that story plays out and how it touches on an early stage of Krypton and exploding. And it feels like after all this time, he managed to find a unique enough approach to feel like it's something that I haven't seen a million times before. And just for that, I'm pretty into it, actually. And I didn't expect to like it so much, but I think if it would have had a bit more substance, I would be a bit more stoked on it. Just there's not a lot really to kind of give you an idea of what kind of narrative we're getting into here. It's very much just an introduction to this world building, an expansion of the world building, I guess, is a better way to put it for this DC lore, and also setting the sides and creating stakes for this. So it does really well in that, and Bendis really could have gone crazy on the dialogue, especially in the Sinmar stuff, because I saw a group of what looked like kind of political types, and I was like, oh no, we're about to get into some debate stuff going on here, and it was gonna get really long-winded and full of dialogue. But yeah, yeah, like I thought that's what I was in for pretty quickly, but it's not that story at all. It's actually it moves at a pretty brisk pace, all things considered, and it's a really enjoyable read. I mean, the artwork is just stellar on it. Like the Sinmar creatures, they actually reminded me of a Saint Walker. I actually went back and looked because I was like, these look like the Blue Lantern type. So I go back and they're not. Would have been really cool, but just kind of a similar appearance. Outside of that, I think like sort of towards the end, whenever we start actually focusing on, what the Sinmar are creating with their take of a Superman and like, why is there no army and stuff like this, you start to get a bigger picture of what's going on. And I think it started to work a little better then. So I liked that it got better towards the end. It wasn't like a strong start off and then kind of fizzled out into just a typical story. Like by the end of it, I was like, okay, yeah, let's do this next issue. Like I'm here for it. But can't complain. Great Superman story, Like Scoop, what'd you think?
Yeah, for sure. I'm definitely in the same boat that you're riding in. Cody said it best in his review title with, intergalactic misunderstandings. Yeah, I mean, that's a marvelous title and that sums it up. But I was surprisingly pleased with what they produced, with what Bendis did. Since we covered, Superman 18 and he did the big reveal, I've been kind of like checking in, here and there and everything. But this was great, man. I'm definitely buying 26. The art was absolutely just gorgeous. I mean, from the inks to the pencil, I mean, just everything, visually about this book was remarkable. Really enjoyed the Sinmar though. Really enjoyed Esno for some weird reason. I think there's something more there. Maybe not. I don't know. But I kind of dug the idea how they excuse me, where they looked upon Earth and kind of like Nick said, you kind of thought that they were going to go on this big political tirade and you kind of, okay, we've been here before, but they didn't, and they kind of held back. But at the same time, you felt their desperation to beat this Kryptonian, to make their own Superman, and kind of, move forward. But everything about this book was right, though. I mean, there was definitely Bendis moments, but if you're going to read a Bendis book, regardless of what era, what timeline you read of Bendis, you're going to read a Bendis book. I mean, that's just who he is. That's just what he does. But man, this was rad. This really shocked me. I mean, I read it numerous times. I'm just like, wow, like this is good. Like, I'm like I said, I'm picking up 26. I'm probably going to go back and pick up 25, but it's like, my LCS guy is probably going to have a heart attack as I'm buying a Superman book, but this is good, man. Definitely pick it up. Highly recommended. Yeah, I think even this is just a good catch-on point. Like if you've been thinking about jumping on Superman, especially someone like me who just kind of like dabbles, like Nick does, pick up an issue here and there, just kind of check in, wave hi, thanks for the coffee, but I got to go. This is definitely a good jumping on point, and man, enjoyed the hell out of Superman 25 for sure. Matt?
Yeah, excuse me. It's interesting comparing Superman and Action Comics because they're both written by Bendis, but they're two really different approaches to Superman, right? Like Action Comics, despite its name, tends to focus more on Clark Kent's life as a journalist, an investigative journalist, right? And there's all kinds of intrigue. And yes, there was some Event Leviathan / Year of the Villain stuff that happened recently. But that aside, that's generally been the focus of Action Comics. And then Superman has been the one about Rogol Tar, the Sinmar, just big, bold superhero ass whooping, right? And I gotta say, like, I'm in that camp of people that had no idea what to expect when Bendis was taking over Superman of all characters, right? And then was pleasantly surprised. Like, he obviously understands this character, and he understands him in a way that really shines through in these quiet moments. Like there's the dialogue between Clark and Lana, right? Or even Lana thumbing through Clark's photo albums while he's quickly putting out a fire, 5 states away, and then is back like a minute later. Little moments like that, it just tells you that Bendis understands who Superman is. And that's why I've so thoroughly enjoyed this run, despite its occasional forays into being too Bendis-y, which, again, man's been, a big deal in the industry for 20 years now, and he's been publishing comics for or writing comics professionally for 25. So these things are to be expected. Writers develop their own tics and habits and their own internal lingo. It's what else. You don't like Bendis, don't read a Bendis comic. This was a good Bendis comic, though. And, excuse me, it works because of the way that it plays, it juxtaposes the small town farm boy in the scenes with Clark and Lana against this brewing cosmic drama that's going on galaxies away with the Sinmar. And, there's this looming threat, and it's a very different kind of threat than what we're accustomed to seeing. These are not world beaters. This is not Rogol Zar, who wants to just pound the crap out of Superman and all Kryptonians. This is a race of beings, a planet of beings that has, they're scared and they're worried about this potential threat out there. They've only got part of the story, but they're acting out of fear. So they create this champion for themselves. And what we gradually start to learn, we haven't really got the details on this yet, is that Eisno has done some things in their service that he doesn't agree with. And he's going to be I think he's going to be a tragic antagonist because of this. And that's going to lead to a really, really interesting conflict between him and Superman, because they're both inherently good people. So I love the way that all of this plays together. I think that Bendis is doing just some of the most surprisingly strong work of his career on the Superman books. Yep, you can quote me. And my gosh, Ivan Reis dude just doesn't miss a beat. He's fantastic. He's always been, right? I gotta say, little bit of a stumbling block. I don't like Danny Miki's inks on his work. I like Danny Miki, okay, but he's got a very, very thin, crisp inking line, and the best Reese stuff, i.e., like during Blackest Night, Jeff Johns' Green Lantern era, he's got a heavier inker working over him that really builds on those bold, brash moments. So it's not that I think the art is bad. I just don't think that Danny Miki and he are necessarily the best pairing. And that's the fault of neither artist, right? It's good work.
Fair, right?
I've seen better from both. So it is what it is. But yeah, very cool comic. Great jumping on point. Man, Superman number 25. Check it out.
Ooh. Big book. Huge book. Huge.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's got like actual villains that you want to care about. I mean, that's to me what I want out of a Superman book. Like, it's something that like plays on some of the best parts of Superman. So, like, definitely worth picking up for even the casual fan.
Absolutely. So yeah, guys. Anything else you want to throw out there on Superman 25?
Yeah, I think we covered all the bases. I think it's pretty unanimous that folks really need to pick up this book, even from the most discerning taste of Superman. I'll be the first one to tell you. I felt dirty even recommending this book that weekend. Yeah, hold on, I had to wash my hands and everything.
That's hard.
Yeah, super.
Yeah, like the world is crazy out there.
Draw it.
It's true. I mean, like the DC is kind of crazy right now. The world's kind of crazy right now, but Superman has a great book on the shelves, and that's cool.
Absolutely.
So, check it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So there you have it. Superman number 25 coming at you from Brian Michael Bendis, Ivan Reis, Julio Ferreira, Danny Miki, and Alex Sinclair.
Dave Sharp.
Dave Sharp. My bad. Name wasn't on. I was looking at the cover, not what you had on the screen.
I get those letterers in.
Yeah, well, definitely do. Definitely do. Dave Sharp. Awesome. So, moving right along, we've got a kind of a different Marvel book this week. This one doesn't star any X-Men or Wolverine or Spider People or even any Avengers. This book is a beloved Japanese property about some kaijus and the giant man from space who fights them. It's Ultraman number 1 coming at you, written by Kyle Higgins and Matt Groom, art from Francesco Manna, and then Michael Cho in the backup story.
Yep.
So what we have here is a comic about giant monsters and people who fight. Except we don't call them monsters, we call them kaiju because that sounds cooler. But it's, I gotta tell you, like, I had absolutely no idea what to expect from this comic because the whole thing I knew about it going in was it was a show that came on after Power Rangers got big in the early 90s. Except I was never reading the Power Rangers because I was too old, so I was just kind of peripherally aware of this Power Rangers-esque dude wrestling around with rubber monsters on afternoons after school. So, Mike, how did you feel about Rise of Ultraman number 1? How did Marvel handle?
I will say this: I've never heard Ultraman being described as a Ranger-esque type of character, but you know what? Why not? It fits. It's cool though.
It fits, man. I'll make that case. I'm just
I bought a ticket for the train ride. I'm great. No, that's awesome. Yeah, no, the United Science Patrol is back, and this was really cool to see Marvel do a book like this. I mean, Ultraman, right? I don't claim to be the biggest Ultraman fan. I kind of just, get my toe in the pool, kind of see how the water is, and do an Ultraman here and there. But this was really good. I was excited. I want to say we did. I'm sure we did a PR because I know this was announced late last year time frame. So I'm sure we did some. I'm sure we covered it because Alex Ross has a cover. Scotty Young has a cover. So I'm sure we did. But we had to have did something. I'm sure
we did a couple of articles, and there's a huge interest in it. Like
huge.
Really love Ultraman.
Yeah, they really do. And I gotta give up to Kyle Higgins and Matt Groom. They really did a phenomenal job. Everyone from art, the whole creative team did a great job. And giving the person that maybe the casual Ultraman fan or someone that hasn't read an Ultraman book or haven't seen the show or whatever, they gave them a great diving board to jump into to the lore. And it wasn't like, I'm really glad they kind of started at the beginning and really kind of held the hand of the reader. And I say that not in a bad way, but in a great way. To start a great pace with character introductions, character building, environment building, and said, here is the world of Ultraman. They did it through the eyes of Kiki Fuji, which was really great to see Shin Hayata kind of start that, transition, if you will. I thought was really good. But this was just a fun book. And I think, we say this phrase all the time in the show where, comics are fun, and this is what comics are meant to do. And I think this is yet an example of that. Comics are fun. This is what they're meant to do, to introduce, to entertain, And that's what Rise of Ultraman did. I mean, even from the back end story, and the title is escaping my mind. Forgive me, but there
Kaiju Steps was one.
Was it the Kaiju Step? Was that the black and white one where Frank?
No, that was the QT one. I forgot the name of the black and white one.
But you know what I'm talking about, right? The Frank where Frank Cho did the art and everything. Like even then, that
Ultra
kind of.
Q.
What's that?
Ultra Q.
Thank you, Ultra Q. And you've got. What's that?
It's Michael Cho, not Frank Cho.
Did I say Frank Cho?
Yeah.
I actually meant Michael, by the way.
There were no big-breasted women with thick thighs.
Oh God, I am so fired. Oh man. Anyway, no, I thought that was really good because even in they gave a great backstory. They dived into more history, and just really from cover to back end. I mean, this was just a fun book. It was fun. I highly recommended from art to the writing. Really well executed. Absolutely. Nick, what'd you think?
So I guess I have a bit of a history lesson. So Ultraman, comes out in like the late 60s. It's a 66 series from Japan that just blows up. Kaiju's huge, fighting like a big kaiju, got a huge guy. And then in a few years, like 5-6 years later in the early 70s, you've got Kamen Rider, also really blows up in Japan. And it's kind of a similar vibe. Guy dresses up in a suit, goes and fights kaiju.
What is it called?
Kamen Rider.
Kamen? Okay.
Yeah.
Kamen. And it's a very similar thing. And it's kind of got that vibe, big kaiju monster. Hero dresses up in a cool suit. Goes on to pretty much inspire Power Rangers, which blows up. And then you get Marvel, who sees that blowing up, and then they create, the Western interpretation that kind of helps kickstart the popularization of Power Rangers, inspired through all of this stuff. Now we come into the comic side of things, and Boom picks up Kyle Higgins as a writer to revamp Power Rangers. Doesn't really follow along with it. He loved Power Rangers growing up, and then revamps it for Boom and does really well. So here we are in a weird full circle moment where Kyle Higgins is now taking on Rise of Ultraman, which is kind of in that same vibe, in the same wheelhouse. And he hasn't followed along with it, but he's kind of revamping it for a new audience and a new time and bringing it into Marvel Comics. We see how this genre really like ties in together and who they're bringing into it. So I was really excited when Higgins was attached to it. Because if you followed the last episode or two, I've been binging the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers from Higgins. Just crazy cool stuff. And I knew going into this that it would be great for somebody who really hasn't followed Ultraman a lot. Because one, this is a totally new timeline. Fans like the Netflix series is a different timeline than the 66 TV series. So we've got 3 Ultraman timelines going on now. Great for new fans, I guess, but boy, the people who have long loved Ultraman, they're keeping up with a lot here. So we get into this, and it's an origin story. That's purely what the Rise of Ultraman #1 is. It's through and through origin, and I think that's great. I think Higgins does a really great job with it, but it relies really heavy on that origin story. Like it sets everything up, but that's kind of all it does. And it's funny because now in Power Rangers, I'm in like volume 10, and you really need something like that for a story from Higgins to, kind of take shape and let it be as good as it's going to be. And the Rise of Ultraman does a great job in setting this character, I guess, in a Marvel feeling comic book that feels like it has high production quality. It's a great story. Everything fits really well and neatly, but I'm not too sure where it's going yet. And even more so, I'm worried that Marvel's not going to give it the time that it needs to really come to life. So I'm kind of anxiously awaiting what's to come on this one. But for a first issue, it was pretty solid. You get a decent length story, and then you get 2 kaiju steps, and then the Q one. So there's a lot there. And I think in that, it kind of gets a bit jumbled. I would have really loved just like a maxi-sized one story or issue #1. That was kind of all in one, but It was actually really cool. I love what Marvel's doing. They seem to understand the history of what this property is and how significant it is. And it's got a huge following. So there's a lot of stuff going well for it or working in its favor. I'm just hoping that it can do well continuing and going forward, because this one's it could be a slower moving book. I mean, from what we have now.
Well,
I continue.
like I don't know, Nick. I mean, just in speaking of the general comics reading populace, I mean, how much true awareness do you think there is for Ultraman?
Yeah, I honestly didn't think there would be that much. I thought this would kind of be a more of a stretch for Marvel to sell to Western audiences. And judging from the interest that we've shown in just our articles at Comic Watch, like a bit of inside knowledge, there's a demand for this, and I'm shocked. I mean, it's every article that we've done. Like Ultraman has a following, and it's a bit of a fandom that you don't realize is there until you start looking for it. And then you start seeing comments here and there. And I did the same thing with Power Rangers. I thought that's just something from my kid, like from my childhood. It's pretty cool. You dig into it, and there's a huge fandom there. There's a huge following, and Ultraman's right there. I think it's surprising how big the following is for that.
Very interesting. Yeah, because I mean, when this project was announced, I know my reaction was just kind of okay, and like that seemed weird, right? And that's me. You know, I'm 39 years old. I'm not very inclined towards anime or manga. I mean, it just seemed weird. But again, I'm not necessarily the intended audience, so I came into this comic utterly cold. Didn't know a thing to expect, other than giant man fight kaijus, and that's cool. Like, hey, I'm fine with that, as long as it's done well. And you know, I guess you could say that about any comic. But this is it's like a weirdly imbalanced comic to me, and I say that because I actually liked the backup story better than the first one. It really, like, in a relatively short amount of pages, I think it was only like 10 or 12 pages, it does a really good job of fleshing out the world in ways that the first story didn't, despite the fact that the first story is really exposition heavy, right? You know, we get this idea that there's more history there than was known before. There's another faction involved with the story, and they are not necessarily good people. And my goodness, you get really, really just period specific great art from Michael Cho. Like, I love that dude's work. Absolutely love it. Plus, it's all done in black and white tones. Mm-hmm. So that was cool for me. Like, the backup story is what made me want to read more. The first story is not bad, but like you were saying, Nick, it's so busy setting things up and doing big exposition dumps that by the time you get to the end of it, you're like, you almost feel like nothing much actually happened, or at least I didn't.
No, it's true.
I didn't even realize it wasn't a story. As I was reading it, I get to that last page of the first story, I'm like, oh, heck yeah, this is about to go on, and turn the page and to be continued. Here's some credits. So, like, I think there's a lot of interesting concepts, and it's worth a look. I mean, it's not a bad comic at all. And I think it's important that Marvel is taking a chance on a property that is obviously beloved and has a built-in fandom, but they're willing to take up, I mean, honestly, a little bit of risk in getting this fandom's property or beloved property to a wider audience. Slapping an Alex Ross cover on it certainly doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of things there. I mean, in some regards, yeah, we've seen secret societies that save the world before. It is what it is. I mean, this is series that's based on something that came out in the 60s. I'm not going to penalize it for that by any stretch of the imagination. I didn't feel like the characters were specifically that compelling, to be perfectly honest. I feel like they were more stereotypes than anything else. But there are some good character dynamics there. So again, maybe just give it some time. As far as the art is concerned, like I've already gushed about Michael Cho. In the lead story, the art by Francisco Manna, it's a little flat, and I'm not sure if that's due to the coloring or the pencils, to be perfectly honest. Like a lot of the pages just look the same and don't have a lot of dynamics to them. But I will give them a lot of credit on one thing in particular that I think is really important. The characters in this book look Japanese without the art style going into that knee-jerk Adam Hughes Gurihiro manga style, you know? Like, it would have been so easy, right? It would have been so easy to be like, oh, we're doing a Japanese property. We should totally put, whatever manga artist on it, right? And they didn't do that. Mm-hmm. They instead went the more traditional American style artist. And that artist did a really good job of conveying the nationality of people without resorting to any sort of caricature or anything. And that's good, and that's important, and that's representation, and that really matters.
Yeah, definitely. It's a strong vision of it. And it actually reminds me of Big Hero 6 from Disney. I don't know if you saw that, like the whole aesthetic.
Yeah.
Like sure. I kept thinking that all the way through it, and it was just so cool. Like I think the artwork and the characterizations are spot on, but like as far as the actual drama or the tension in between these characters, I can definitely say like with the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers from Higgins, it's not until volume 3, I think maybe 4, that you're really like these characters are people that like I'm here for no matter what they're doing. Like I need to see what's going on with them, and that's why I mentioned like pretty quick. Yeah, definitely. And I can see that already happening with Ultraman 1. It's like this feels like it's just very surface level, but like it definitely needs time to build. And I know Higgins is capable of it. So hopefully Marvel lets everybody. Like I'm really hoping that.
My concern is it'll make a big splash with issue 1 and do okay with issue 2 and then take a nosedive because Marvel's not supporting the book. And then get canceled at like 5%.
So basically,
they have a history.
Marvel is doing.
It's a tough one. Like you don't know which way it's going, and that's something that I think it makes its way into the conversation just because of us being longtime readers. We've been jaded in the past, and we've kind of felt the sting of what these big two companies do. So even on an exciting book like this, you almost approach it with a bit of hesitation because you're like, if I fall for this project and I really love it, it's going to sting more when it gets canceled and gets turned into actually this was a maxi series or just a mini series all along.
Yeah.
And
it's not canceled. It was actually a 6-issue mini series. Yeah, screw you. We know what's going on.
Yeah.
No.
So.
But
goodness,
that's just what it is. That's the world, I guess. And we're not saying that about Bendis on Superman, like because we're well into Bendis's Superman run. It's had time, so part of the discussion is like if you're not on with what Bendis is doing, this is going to be weird. But this Marvel book is so different because it's like you're going to love it, but let's just hope Marvel sticks with it.
Right. There's like zero hope for any long time running book. Dr. Doom that people actually enjoy and people buy, and then Marvel just, you know what, I'm tired of this. I'm gonna just just fling it off, and no one's ever heard.
Did they cancel Dr. Doom?
I think they did. I haven't heard because I know Campbell's doing Iron Man, and I think Dr. Doom got the quiet chopping block.
Oh, I didn't know that. That was a damn good book.
Awesome.
So of course they canceled it because it was smarter.
Take your time. Don't worry. We can. You know what? We'll cut the commercial really quick. Matt will take a few minutes to gather himself. We'll just come back.
No, just irritating.
Yeah. Quick, Nick, get up and
Like,
dance.
here's a smart comic. Oh, it's done.
Yeah, and that's something I knew coming into this. I was like, I loved this book, but it just weighs on me because I'm like, I shouldn't love it too much. And
You know, Marvel's gonna cancel it, so it's fine.
You know, like you're right. They slapped an Alex Ross cover on it. It seems like they're committing to like re-envisioning this property to a larger audience, and I'm part of that audience, and I want to engage with it and like it. So it seems like all the pieces are there. I'm just pretty hesitant still on what the future may hold for this one.
Yep.
Just what it is.
Yeah.
The pieces for betrayal. Yep. So tune in next week where we bitch about corporate comics some more for an hour.
But we still buy the corporate comic.
Yeah, but we'll still go buy them.
That's right, damn it.
It's a vicious cycle. It really is.
Oh, it really is.
Like,
you see, though, you see how certain fandoms get so jaded, though, and can turn so toxic, right?
Yeah,
like the go-to example for that is Star Wars, and I mean that's a whole nother conversation. But like stuff like this is what ultimately leads to that sort of toxic fandom.
Yeah,
and it's just frustrating, and that's the problem with the big two being owned by these mega corporations that are more invested in the IPs than in actual creation and making quality product. So it goes. But you know what? That's depressing. Let's talk about what we've been reading. And by the way, you should totally buy Rise of Ultraman because it was a good comic.
Yeah,
support it. Damn it.
Please.
So, please. Nick, what have you been reading now that we're horribly depressed?
But I guess I talked about it at length, but I've still been reading Power Rangers. Like Higgins drops it off. I forget who the writer comes in to do the Shattered Grid arc. Huge arc, kind of expansive. But I'm issue 39 now, and on issue 53, I think is the newest one. And it's just too cool. Alternate timeline stuff. Re-envisioning Power Rangers for an adult audience is something I'm here for. I had no idea for it, but I actually am here for it. So super cool stuff.
Awesome.
As far as what I'm looking forward to, I know we've got a new Bloodshot issue coming out, and because we're talking about kaiju,
Valiant watch.
No, I'm tying it in. Hold on, it's about kaiju.
Stick to your own time.
Yeah, I got a plug for this one.
All right, I'm listening. I'm ready, buddy.
So we go through in Bloodshot 7, and finally we get this introduction for kaiju coming into the story. Big monsters. So excited for that one. I actually got a chance to chat with Mark Laming. Excuse me if I butchered your name. So sorry. It was actually exciting to be able to kind of pick his brain about this because I'm a huge kaiju fan, and it was cool to get some of the process behind the scenes of what goes into this, because he's like using different animals for influence and scale and stuff like that. And I'm really excited to see the kaiju take a bigger role in Bloodshot number 8. Just super explosive story, and ready for that.
That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's
Bloodshot
probably one of my
kaiju does sound intriguing.
Right, like it's just an easy sell, and I think that's when like Bloodshot works best for me, when I'm like, oh yeah, I'm so here for that. Like I gotta see that, you know. That's the type of Bloodshot that I think works best. We've got some exciting stuff coming up from Vault 2. Another Bleed Them Dry, which is the ninja vampire. Another thing that I'm like, ninja vampires, here for it. Like I'm not missing that. And they have Heavy number 1 coming out too. That's any new series from Vault I'm gonna check out, even if it's not in my wheelhouse. But that's pretty much it. Still waiting on Spawn 310. That is going to supposed to have the Ninja Spawn cover that I am just
Gotcha.
I'm ready for that. I've told the LCS like I need both that cover and every other cover that can come with it, and I'm kind of disappointed because McFarlane puts Ninja Spawn on the cover of 310 and then is like, oh, and he's going to show up in interior pages in a couple of issues. So I was like, oh, man. So it goes. But that's
so it goes. Well, Mike, how about you? What have you been reading? What are you looking forward to?
Been reading surprise from the recommendation of the Comic Watch people. Been doing some homework on Aquaman, so I've been doing.
Oh, I recommended that.
Yeah, fine. Matt recommended. No, I've been diving into Peter David's Aquaman and eating a bit of crow. I'm about 3 to 4 issues in. And pretty rad so far. Definitely going to keep reading. It's worthy. It might be even worthy to adore in the long boxes. When you go back.
Oh yeah.
And stuff. So, but it's been fun stuff, and I would say I missed out. Just not really, not even. I guess not even really caring about Aquaman, but yeah, no, it's definitely cool, man. I'm do swim without floaties. Why not? Let's talk some.
Just remember, it's a harpoon, not a hook.
Either way, it's 20.
No. That's fans of a certain vintage will appreciate that comment. Peter David will appreciate that comment should he ever listen to this, which he won't. Awesome. What are you looking forward to, buddy?
Looking forward to is probably the two bigger books is from Image Skybound, Stillwater from Chip Zdarsky. That's his new.
Oh, you stole my thunder. Go on.
Well, you know what? Okay, I'm not looking forward to whatever Stillwater that is. I've never even been to Oklahoma, but I'm actually looking.
OSU is. Leave it alone. I've gotten drunk there many times.
Yeah, that's issue. That would be episode 101. But anyway, no, I guess other than not being excited for Stillwater, Iron Man 1 from Chris Cantwell from what we kind of joked about earlier, his Doom run. This is definitely going to be exciting because if his Iron Man is anything like what he did with Doom, man, strap in because Doom was fun. Doom is super
smart.
Oh, it is. I mean, the readability, if that's a word, if it's not, let's mark that down. For Doom is just marvelous. So I am super stoked for his Iron Man, definitely.
Totally. Awesome. So we've got, I got a bunch of good stuff coming out this week, which this was like a relatively light week for releases. So kind of spoiled for choice next week. But I got to be obvious. Detective Comics number 1027 comes out. 144 pages of top shelf talent telling Batman stories for $9.99. I'm there.
Yeah.
I'm sold. You don't even have to tell me anything else. And I mean, really, the creative lineup on that is pretty freaking epic. Let me see if it's listed here. God, we got Matt Fraction, Brian Michael Bendis, Tomasi, Grant Morrison, Dan Jurgens, Mariko Tamaki, Greg Rucka, Scott Snyder, Marv Wolfman, Kelly Sue DeConnick, and Tom King. And yeah, they were gonna throw him in there. And then, I mean, God, the art is a murderer's row too. You've got Jim Chung, Jose Luis Garcia Lopez, Lee Bermejo, Dan Jurgens again, freaking Jamal Campbell, Dan Mora, Ivan Reese, Emanuela Lupacino, Riley Rossmo, Eduardo Risso, Chip Zdarsky, David Marquez, and Chris freaking Burnham. Dude, this is an insanely talented bunch. I cannot wait to read this thing. So, and you should read it too. Stop being bad. And then I'm going to shamelessly plug Stillwater by Chip Zdarsky and Ramon K. Perez as well, because anytime Zdarsky writes something, it's freaking awesome. It's a horror series about people in a small town who do not age because they're in the town. Sounds pretty cool to me. I'm down. So yeah, got some good stuff next week. Also next week we have our 99th episode. Holy moly! That means after that there will only be one more episode to go, or that means now there's only one more episode between now and number 100. We are plotting something major for 100. Fingers crossed we pull it off. It's going to be epic. It's going to be a 100th episode birthday blowout.
Celebration.
Like, there hasn't been a 100th something anniversary this big since Wolverine lost his nose. Okay? It's going to be awesome.
At least as awesome as Wolverine losing his nose.
Dude, that's actually a really good comic. Some of the best Adam Kubert art I've ever seen. But I digress. Yeah, so that's it for us. We've gotten to the point where we're all just kind of tired and silly and hungry and desperately need a drink and to read more comics. And so I think we'll call it a wrap. That's the end of the show, episode 98.
Yes.
Thank you all so much for listening. I hope you like the new live format where we're keeping it a little looser. I think it's really fun. We hopefully we can, get a little more audience interaction this way. We didn't pull it off this week, but at all, even once. So tell your friends about it. Spread the word. Share the link. Do good things. Be good people.
Yeah.
Support your local comic store. And what if you know someone that's been affected by the wildfires out west, do what you can to help them. And even if you don't, man, I hate to be the thoughts and prayers guy because I don't believe in any of that, but send good vibes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you all very much for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Peace out.